Hi everyone, this is Vlad from Modulus Render, and in today's tutorial we're going to talk about studio lighting in SketchUp and Enscape. Now if we take a look at the model in SketchUp, we see this black studio with some interesting lighting setup. Now let me just zoom out a little bit, and I want to show you this black box surrounding the scene. It's a simple box with some thickness and a rounded corner in the back over here. And the reason for this box is because I want to block out the sun and the skylight. So I just want artificial lighting or studio lighting to influence the scene. Now I want to show you guys all the lights that I used and what purpose they have in this scene. So in order for me to do that, let me just start Enscape and then see how each light influences the model. Now this is how the render looks. Let me just get a closer look because I want a portrait rendering of this statue. And something like this. And now let me just turn off all the lights and go through them one by one. So now it's dark. Let's start with the top light, which is this one. And the main lights that I used are these dome lights with multiple disc lights on the inside. Now the idea here is that all the light that comes out of this dome is indirect. What I mean by this is that every disc light sends the light that bounces around this dome and then comes out. Now because it's bounced light, the shadows are softer. Let me just open the settings to show you the render settings. First of all, there's no auto exposure, because if this is on, then the light will be very weak. So I want to control this without auto exposure, because we're talking about studio lighting and we need some fine-tuning when it comes to the overall look of the image. So I want to turn off auto exposure, but leave it at 50. And then we can tweak it after we put all the lights in. The other thing I want to disable is auto contrast. So I don't want it to be this dark. So for this scene, I've put the highlights to 100% and then shadows to -48, -50%. And I think that's it for now with the settings. This is important, just the auto exposure and the auto contrast disabled. Now I want another light from the left going up here in order to have some light on the side of the statue. So I basically multiplied the same light here. And if I turn it on and off, you'll see the effect it has. So what we're actually doing is painting the model with light, right? We had the top light, which brings some nice details over here, but everything else is pretty dark. So we turn on this side light too. So these two are the main lights for this studio setup. Now another thing that is used in photographic lighting are reflectors. So in this case, for the reflector, I've set up an orange wall in here, and there's a light hitting the wall. So what this basically does is the light from this spotlight hits the wall, picks up the color from the wall and then bounces it back onto the statue. That's why you see this orange area over here. Let me increase the exposure a little bit so it's more visible in the image. It's a little bit overexposed, but I want you guys to see this reflector light coming in from here. And once we change the color of the reflector, these highlights will also change. So, for example, if we make it blue, you'll see the color change over here. So this is a cool trick we can use and play around with for a studio setup. Let me just bring it back to this orange color and bring down the exposure. Now another thing we need is some nice backlight to give us some separation from the background. And for that I've used another spotlight because the cone is adjustable, so I can let in how much light I need and I don't worry about the light just leaking in other parts of the scene. So we have a backlight over there. And you see, little by little, we just add lights. We have the main lights, we have the reflector, and we have the backlight, and our render is almost ready to go. We just have to check the exposure levels, and for this I like to use the light view. Just turn that on, and then you see the intensity of the lights in the scene. Wherever you see red, that's overexposed or very bright, and then we have the blue zones where it's basically more shadow. So you see, wherever the light hits, we have these orange or red areas in the scene. But this looks pretty good, like that. We're looking for mostly green and yellow shades. Because again, if it's too red, it's overexposed, or if it's too blue, it's very dark. But this is looking pretty good. So this is basically it. It's a 3-light setup. We have 2 main lights, 1 reflector, and an extra backlight over there. It's actually 4 lights set up. The backlight to separate the background from the statue, and then the reflector is a good tool to use if we want to have different types of colors into our scene. But this is basically it. It's not too complicated, and we can render out our final image. Now this is the final rendering that I did using this technique. If you found this information useful, don't forget to subscribe and hit that like button. If you have any questions, leave a comment below, and I'll see you in the next tutorial.